The Netherlands. What basic knowledge of Dutch history and culture should we pass on to future generations of Dutch citizens? This was the difficult question facing the Committee for the Development of the Dutch Canon in 2005. The result is a canon and 50 key topics and events that show how the Netherlands have developed into its country. Hey guys, welcome back to World Explained, the channel where we take you on a journey around the world and talk about their fascinating stories. In today's video, we'll talk about the beautiful country of the Netherlands. But before we begin, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications by hitting the bell so you never miss any of our uploads. Now with the intro out of the way, let's get into our topic for today. The Netherlands is situated in northwestern Europe and the borders Germany to the east, Belgium to the south, and the North Sea to the west and north. First things first, this is not Holland. The name Netherlands means lowlands, about the nation's topography as an alluvial plain. Differences in altitude are minimal. Netherlands means low-lying country. The name Holland from Houtland or wooded land was initially given to one of the medieval cores of what later became the modern state, and it is still used for two of its 12 provinces, Noord-Holland and Zuid-Holland. But now there's just the Netherlands. Known as the home of beautiful flowers and windmills, there is so much more to this country, like being the healthiest people in the world. In regards to diet, true with loads of cheese, it sounds nearly impossible, but they make up for it by riding Bix all day. Now let's take a quick look at how Netherlands came to be. The history of the Netherlands spanned its glory days as a 17th century wealthy seafaring empire to its time as a colonial powerhouse and its present status as one of the most liberal nations in the world. The Dutch masters of the 17th and 19th centuries, like Vincent van Gogh, put them on the art map. At the same time, architecture in the country is picturesque and distinctive, most easily recognized by merchant homes lining Amsterdam's canals. The Dutch distinguish between two major cultural divisions in their nation. The most important distinction is between the Randstad or Rim City and non-Randstad cultures. Randstad culture is distinctly urban, located in North Holland, South Holland, and Utrecht. The non-Randstad culture corresponds to the historical divide between the predominantly Protestant North and the Catholic South, separated by the Rhine River. Significant local variations of Dutch culture include the Frisian culture in the extreme north and the Brabant and Limburg cultures in the south. The Frisian prize their language and descent from the ancient Frisian people, while the Limburgers and Brabantines emphasizes their southern culture and Catholic heritage. For centuries, the Netherlands has provided a haven for ethnic minorities fleeing from discrimination and persecution, influencing Dutch culture in its way. Many Jews from Spain and Portugal and Protestant merchants from the Spanish-ruled southern Netherlands sought refuge in the Dutch Republic in the 16th and 17th centuries. The 20th century was characterized by guest workers from the Mediterranean, migrants from the former Dutch colonies, and refugees from war-torn countries. The Netherlands does not have a solid uniform national culture. Most Dutch people reject the notion and consider it tainted with an unacceptable form of nationalism. Instead, they emphasize cultural diversity, tolerance of difference, and receptiveness to foreign influences. Nevertheless, the Randstad cultures have been hegemonic in the Netherlands because of the concentration of political, economic, and cultural power in that densely populated region. The Dutch national identity emerged from the Catholic Habsburg struggle for political sovereignty and religious freedom. The Dutch merchant class allied with the House of Orange. The merchants supplied the funds to wage war, while the House of Orange provided political stability and military protection. Politics became more dependent on consensus and negotiation than on authoritarian rule, as power rested in the hands of provincial rulers. The rapid expansion of the Dutch merchant fleet enabled the establishment of a worldwide network of trade relations that created naval dominance and increased wealth for the merchant class. Handicapped by a small population and besieged by growing English and French might, the Dutch Republic declined. Paradoxically, at that time, the consumption of the wealthy merchant class resulted in the so-called Golden Age. Stately canal houses were constructed in Amsterdam, and great works of art were commissioned. The Netherlands was one of the poorest nations in northwestern Europe by 1750. In 1813, at the end of the French occupation, from 1795 to 1813, William I of the House of Orange-Nassau accepted the throne and became the first Dutch king. The Dutch nobility never had a position of prominence and influence in Dutch society. After constitutional reforms in 1851, the nation began its ascent to industrialization. Rural-urban migration, especially the establishment of male suffrage in 1887, undermined traditional ways of life in the eyes of some politicians. The Anti-Revolutionary Party was founded in 1878 to reverse that trend. That party advocated autonomy for different political and religious communities. Its initiative resulted in vertical segmentation of pluralism in the early 20th century known as pillarization. The four main pillars were Catholic, Protestant, Socialist, and Conservative. Intensive cooperation and negotiation between the pillars took place among national politicians. Secularization and emancipation in the late 1960s resulted in depolarization because of a great vertical social mobility, growing intermarriage, and a declining identification with each of the four pillars. A strong self-conscious national identity did not help in the Netherlands because of these centrifugal historical processes, and this denial of national identity became a hallmark of Dutch culture. Religious, cultural, and ethnic diversity are considered the essence of Dutch culture. The persistence of sizable religious and regional minorities and the decentralization of administrative power have allowed cultural diversity to survive. In the absence of a countrywide shared identity, the hegemonic Randstad culture has provided most national identity markers. You thought this was it? Well, there's more. Despite government-encouraged emigration after World War II, which prompted some 500,000 persons to leave the country, the Netherlands is today one of the world's most densely populated countries. Although the population as a whole is graying rapidly with a high percentage over age 65, Amsterdam has remained one of the liveliest centers of international youth culture. There, perhaps more than anywhere else in the country, the Dutch tradition of social tolerance is readily encountered. Prostitution, soft drug marijuana, and hashish use, and euthanasia are all legal but carefully regulated in the Netherlands, the first country to legalize same-sex marriage. This relative independence of outlook was evident as early as the 16th and 17th centuries, when the Dutch rejected monarchical controls and took a relatively enlightened view of other cultures, especially when they brought wealth and capital to the country's trading centers. In that period, Dutch merchant ships sailed the world and helped lay the foundations of a great trading country characterized by a vigorous spirit of enterprise. In later centuries, the Netherlands continued to have one of the most advanced economies globally, despite the country's modest size. The Dutch economy is open and generally internationalist in outlook. With Belgium and Luxembourg, the Netherlands is a member of the Benelux Economic Union. The 1950s and 1960s served as a model for the larger European economic community, of which the Benelux countries are members. The Netherlands is also a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It hosts several international organizations, especially in the legal sector, such as the International Court of Justice. The Dutch reputation for tolerance was tested in the late 20th and early 21st centuries when an increase in immigration from non-European Union countries and a populist turn in politics resulted in growing nationalisms and even xenophobia, marked by two race-related political assassinations in 2002 and 2004, and the government's requirement that immigrants pass an expensive integration test before they enter the country. Since World War II, the Netherlands has been a highly industrialized country occupying a central position in the economic life of Western Europe. Although agriculture accounts for a small percentage of the national income and labor force, it remains a highly specialized contributor to Dutch exports. The Netherlands has a market economy, but the state traditionally has been a significant participant in transportation, resource extraction, and heavy industry. The government also employs a substantial percentage of the total labor force and affects investments policy. Nonetheless, during the 1980s, when the ideological climate favored market economics, many privatizations were initiated, government economic intervention was reduced, and the welfare state was restructured. State-owned companies such as DSM and KLM were among those privatized. Nonetheless, the Netherlands has, relatively speaking, a highly regulated mixed economy. Since World War II, government policy has consciously stimulated economic development, and state subsidies have been granted to attract industry and services toward the relatively underdeveloped north and certain other pockets of economic stagnation. Despite these subsidies, the western part of the country remains the center of new activity, especially in the service sector. There are few communities more laid back or down to earth than the Dutch. Arrogance and prevention rarely go down well in the Netherlands, whereas high spirits, friendship, and family are things to be proud of. The Dutch also have a reputation of being economically savvy and prefer to save money rather than indulge in unnecessary consumerism. Extravagance is not always celebrated, despite the country's lavish buildings and architecture often seen as wasteful. Instead, the people are more interested in artsy stuff such as music and international affairs, which is evident in their daily discussions of global issues. To conclude, this country is simply amazing, and it would take a whole day to tell you every single thing about this place. Like Anne Frank, football, Rembrandt, licorice, beer, and probably a million other things as well, but that's something to talk about on another bright, shiny day. Well guys, that's all we have for you today. Did you know about the history of the Netherlands? Get involved and let us know in the comment section down below what you think about today's video. If you liked this video and found it informative, then be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Also, if you don't want to miss out on any future videos like these, then be sure to click on the subscribe button and then on the notification under this video so that you're notified the next time we upload a new video. Thanks for watching guys, we hope you have a great day today, and we'll see you on the next video.